12 places where people disappear without a trace. There are lines on the map that people cross and are never seen again. I'm not talking about portals from some sci-fi movie. These are real places. Sprawling national parks, idyllic tourist beaches, and even the supposedly safe confines of a brightly lit cruise ship. In July of 1981, what should have been a memorable father-daughter trip into the stunning wilderness of Yosemite National Park became the start of a 40-year mystery. 14-year-old Stacey Arras, a talented photographer, was on a horseback tour with her dad. After arriving at their camp high in the mountains, Stacey decided to take a short walk to a nearby lake for some pictures. An older man from their group went with her. A short while later, feeling the altitude, he sat down on a rock, telling Stacey he'd wait for her. A guide tending to horses saw Stacey walk a little further down the hill, camera in hand, before she disappeared behind the dense tree line. That was the last time anyone ever saw her. There were no tracks, no screams, no witnesses to a struggle. Just absence. Despite a massive 9-day search with hundreds of people and helicopters, the only trace of Stacey Arras ever found was the lens cap from her camera, lying innocently near the trail. This isn't a scene from a movie. It's one of over a dozen real-life vanishing points across the globe where people step into the unknown. Today, we're exploring the chilling locations that continue to defy all explanation. Place 1. Yosemite National Park, USA, the Vanishing Wilderness. Yosemite National Park is a staggering piece of American wilderness, over 1,100 square miles of granite cliffs, ancient sequoia groves, and untamed forests. It's a place of profound beauty, but also profound mystery. While exact numbers are hard to pin down, hundreds of people have been reported missing within its boundaries over the years. According to the National Park Service, there are currently more than 30 unsolved cases in Yosemite. The case of Stacey Arras is just one chapter in this unsettling history. Take the disappearance of 30-year-old George Panka in June of 2011. He was hiking with a church group near the famous Upper Yosemite Falls. His group saw him looking at his map, and when they looked back moments later, he was gone. This wasn't deep in the backcountry, it was a well-trafficked area. Still, an immediate and huge search turned up nothing. It was like he'd been erased from the landscape. Or Peter Jackson, a 74-year-old experienced hiker who vanished in September 2016. He texted his son that he was heading out for a hike from his campsite. Searchers found his site perfectly intact, all his belongings untouched. For 3 years, there was nothing. Then, in 2019, his backpack was found miles away, deepening the mystery. How did it get there? And where was Peter? The terrain is, of course, a huge factor. The park is a maze of cliffs, powerful rivers, and thick forest where one wrong step can be fatal. But many who disappeared, like Sandra Johnson Hughes who vanished in 2020 after a minor car crash near the park's edge, or Joel Thomason who disappeared in 2021 on a solo trip, were in situations that shouldn't have led to them vanishing completely. Yosemite's search and rescue teams are world-class, but in these cases, they find nothing. No clothing, no remains, no sign of an animal attack or foul play. It's this total lack of evidence that turns a tragedy into an enduring, terrifying mystery, cementing Yosemite's reputation as a place where the wilderness sometimes keeps its secrets forever. Place 2. The Great Smoky Mountains, USA, Appalachian Emptiness. Stretching across North Carolina and Tennessee, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park is the most visited national park in the United States. But beneath its misty beauty lies a dark history of disappearances that are as chilling as they're inexplicable. At least 5 people have walked into these mountains and never been seen again. The most famous of these is the gut-wrenching story of Dennis Martin. On Father's Day weekend in 1969, 6-year-old Dennis was on a family camping trip. He and his brother decided to play a classic kid's prank: hide behind some bushes and jump out to scare the grown-ups. Dennis, wearing a bright red shirt, went to hide. His father saw him duck behind a shrub. That was the last positive sighting. When the other kids came back and Dennis didn't, a frantic search began. It became the most extensive search in the park's history, involving over 1,400 people, including Green Berets. A torrential downpour hit just hours after he vanished, washing away any tracks. Despite combing 56 square miles, not a single verifiable trace of Dennis Martin was ever found. No red shirt, no shoes, absolutely nothing. The case remains a haunting mystery with no conclusive evidence pointing to what happened. And Dennis isn't the only one. In 1976, 16-year-old Trini Lynn Gibson vanished during a school field trip while hiking on a popular trail, surrounded by dozens of classmates. Then there was Thelma Polly Melton in 1981, who was hiking just slightly ahead of her friends. They rounded a bend, and she was gone. In each case, the story is unervingly similar. A person is there one moment and gone the next, in places that, while wild, shouldn't just swallow people whole. Place 3. Tampere, Finland. The urban vanishing. Disappearances aren't just confined to the wilderness. Sometimes, the most baffling cases happen in the heart of a city, under the glare of streetlights. This brings us to Tampere, Finland, and the mystery of Raisa Räisänen. On October 16, 1999, the city of Tampere was buzzing because of an EU summit, meaning the city was swarming with police. It was in this supposedly secure environment that 16-year-old Raisa Räisänen was enjoying a night out. After leaving a nightclub, Raisa and her friend parted ways around 10:50 p.m. Her friend got a ride, but there wasn't room for Raisa. The last confirmed sighting of Raisa was near a downtown department store. From that moment on, she vanished into a fog of conflicting reports and terrifying uncertainty. What makes Raisa's case so strange are the witness reports that followed. A taxi driver believed he picked her up around midnight, saying she was with a man and seemed cold and afraid. Others reported seeing a girl matching her description with an older woman, followed by 2 loud screams. Despite thousands of tips over the years and an investigation that is still active and now being treated as a murder, every lead is gone cold. Raisa's disappearance from a city on high alert is a chilling reminder that a crowd doesn't always mean safety, and a person can be swallowed by the urban landscape just as completely as by any remote wilderness. Place 4. Cruise ships, lost at sea. A cruise ship is sold as a floating paradise, a city on the water. But they can also become places where jurisdiction is murky and help is an ocean away. When someone vanishes from a cruise ship, they disappear from a closed, monitored environment, which makes their absence all the more baffling. The case of Rebecca Corium is perhaps the most disturbing. In March 2011, the 24-year-old was working on the Disney Wonder off the coast of Mexico. On the morning of March 22nd, she missed her 9 a.m. shift. The last image of her was from a security camera at 5:45 a.m. In the footage, she's on an internal phone, appearing emotionally distressed. A colleague asks if she's okay. She says, "Yeah, fine," hangs up, and walks out of frame forever. Disney's official theory was that a rogue wave swept her overboard, but her family fiercely rejected this. The investigation, handled by a single detective from the Bahamas where the ship was registered, was slammed by Rebecca's parents and British politicians as totally and utterly unsatisfactory. They felt Disney was more interested in public relations than finding the truth. The family was given a pair of flip-flops Disney claimed were Rebecca's, but they weren't her size or style and had another crew member's name on them. Her parents believe she was murdered and thrown overboard. Despite settling a lawsuit, they have never received concrete answers. Rebecca Corium's disappearance highlights a terrifying reality. The open ocean can be the perfect place to hide a crime. Place 5. Punta Cana, Dominican Republic, Paradise Lost. Tourist destinations like Punta Cana thrive on an image of idyllic escape. But as the 2025 case of Sadishka Khani shows, that illusion can shatter in an instant. Sadishka was a college student on a dream vacation. On her last night, after being with friends, she decided to take a stroll along the resort's beach. Witnesses saw her walking near the water's edge in a well-lit, patrolled area. She never returned to her room. When she missed her flight the next morning, the alarm was raised. Resort security footage captured a grainy image of her walking along the shore, but then the view was blocked by palm trees. When the area came back into view, she was gone. The search turned up nothing, no belongings, no footprints, no signs of a struggle. Local authorities suggested she might have gone for a late-night swim and been pulled under by a current. Her family and friends rejected this, describing Sedishka as a cautious person who wouldn't swim alone at night. They feared foul play, worried she was another tourist targeted in a place that depends on sweeping these incidents under the rug. Her story became a media storm, but despite the attention, Sedishka Khani's fate remains a mystery. She walked into the tropical night and simply vanished, a haunting reminder that even beautiful places can hold terrifying secrets. Place 6. The North Atlantic, the ocean's abyss. The Bermuda Triangle gets all the fame, but the truth is the entire North Atlantic is a vast, unforgiving wilderness where ships and people have vanished for centuries. The reason isn't supernatural, it's the sheer, indifferent immensity of the open ocean. Modern technology hasn't eliminated the ghost ship. Take the MV Alta. In 2018, its engines failed on its way from Greece to Haiti. The 10-person crew was rescued, and the ship was left adrift, expected to sink. It didn't. For over a year, the Alta drifted silently and undetected. It was spotted only once, a phantom vessel, by a British naval ship in September 2019. Then it vanished again until February 2020, when Storm Dennis violently threw it ashore in Ireland. For 18 months, a 250-foot ship roamed one of the world's busiest shipping basins like a ghost. Even more unsettling is the sailboat Wolfhound, found in 2013 about 800 miles from Bermuda. The boat was in perfect condition, but no one was aboard. A researcher who boarded it found a scene of everyday life, frozen in time. Personal belongings were scattered about, but there were no signs of a struggle or a distress call. The crew had simply ceased to be there. These stories illustrate a terrifying truth. Whether it's an accident or something sinister, the open ocean is the ultimate accomplice. It swallows evidence and holds its secrets in the crushing depths. Place 7. Kent, England. The suburban void. We usually associate disappearances with wild, remote places. But the 2025 case of Skye Conway and her infant daughter from Kent, England, is a chilling reminder that you can vanish just as completely from a populated suburb, even in our age of constant surveillance. 17-year-old Skye Conway was a new mother. One afternoon, she left her apartment to take her baby for a walk to a nearby park, something she did almost every day. She said hello to a neighbor on her way out. It was the last time anyone is known to have spoken to her. When she didn't come back, her mother called the police. In a country with one of the highest densities of CCTV cameras in the world, investigators were sure they could track her. They did, but only to a point. Footage showed her pushing the stroller down her street and entering the park, but no camera ever saw her leave. The park was thoroughly searched. It wasn't a huge wilderness, just a maintained public space. Every inch was scoured. Ponds were dragged. Drones flew overhead. They found nothing. No stroller, no baby items, no sign of Skye or her child. It was as if she walked through the park gates and into another dimension. The case defies the logic that in our watched world, someone, let alone a mother and baby, can just step off the grid in broad daylight. Place 8. The Fort Worth Missing Trio, USA, vanished from a crowd. Christmas shopping at a busy mall should be one of the safest activities imaginable. But on December 23, 1974, the Seminary South Shopping Center in Fort Worth, Texas, became the backdrop for one of America's most haunting mysteries. It was the day 3 young girls went shopping and never came home. Rachel Trelika, 17, Renee Wilson, 14, and Julie and Mosley, 9, drove to the mall in Rachel's car. They were supposed to be home by 4 p.m. When they didn't return, their families panicked. They found Rachel's car locked in the Sears lot. Inside, on the floor, were the Christmas presents they had bought. But of the 3 girls, there was no sign. A few days later, a strange clue emerged. Rachel's husband received a letter in the mail, supposedly from her. It claimed the girls had taken off for Houston, but the family was adamant she didn't write it. The handwriting was similar, but it was addressed formally to Thomas A. Schleicher when she always called him Tommy, and the name Rachel was written strangely on the envelope. An FBI analysis was inconclusive. For 50 years, the families have lived in agonizing uncertainty following dead-end leads. How can 3 people disappear from a crowded mall in broad daylight, leaving their car and gifts behind? It's a terrifying paradox that proves sometimes the most bewildering voids aren't in the wilderness, but in the places we feel safest. These stories are deeply unsettling, and they leave us with far more questions than answers. If you find yourself drawn into these mysteries, take a moment to subscribe and click the notification bell. We're dedicated to uncovering the facts behind the world's most baffling cases. Now, let's get back to the locations that defy explanation. Place 9, Rainier, Oregon, USA, the Pacific Northwest gloom. The Pacific Northwest is a region of dramatic, often gloomy beauty. Its dense, rain-soaked forests can feel both ancient and menacing, and Oregon has a high rate of missing persons. The case of Teresa and Davidson Murphy from Rainier is a classic example of the kind of mystery that seems to rise from these dark woods. In October 1999, 34-year-old Teresa dropped her teenage daughter off for a sleepover. That same day, her husband left for a solo camping trip. 2 days later, Teresa spoke to her daughter on the phone, who later said her mother didn't sound like herself. Teresa was supposed to pick her up the next day, but she never showed. Bizarrely, Teresa wasn't reported missing for 16 days. When investigators finally arrived at her home, they found a strange scene. All of her personal belongings were there. Her truck was parked nearby, with the keys in the ignition. But Teresa was gone. Her husband also reported one other thing missing, a .45 caliber handgun. The case was immediately suspicious, but no hard evidence ever emerged. The dense forests surrounding Rainier provided an infinite number of places to disappear or be made to disappear. No trace of Teresa has ever been found. Her case embodies the unsettling nature of many disappearances in the Pacific Northwest, a story that starts in a normal home but ends at the edge of an impenetrable wilderness. Place 10, South Kashmir, India, the mountain's shadow. The majestic mountains of Kashmir have long been a place of both beauty and turmoil. But in 2025, a new mystery began to unfold in the remote corners of South Kashmir. Young men from the nomadic Gujar community, shepherds who have roamed these mountains for centuries, began to vanish. The pattern was disturbingly consistent. A young man would take his flock to graze in the high meadows. He'd be seen by fellow shepherds one day, and the next, he'd be gone. His flock would be found scattered, his belongings untouched in his shelter. But there would be no trace of the man himself. At first, authorities blamed the natural perils of the mountains, falls, or animal attacks. But as the number of missing men grew, a more sinister pattern emerged. In the few cases where bodies were found, it only deepened the mystery. They were often discovered miles from where the men were last seen, with injuries inconsistent with a simple fall. The local community grew fearful, whispering about criminal gangs or some new threat lurking in the mountains. Trust in the official investigation eroded quickly. The families of the missing felt that as a marginalized community, their concerns were being dismissed. They started their own searches, but were ill-equipped for the vast terrain. The disappearances became a chilling example of how vulnerable communities can be targeted in remote regions. The mountains, once a source of livelihood, had become a place of fear, casting a long shadow of uncertainty and grief over the Gujar people. Place 11. Migration routes. The Mediterranean, the ghost boats. The Mediterranean Sea has become a graveyard. It's the final, desperate passage for hundreds of thousands of migrants. While we hear about rescues and tragedies, there's a quieter, even more terrifying phenomenon: the ghost boats. These are vessels that set sail, packed with people, and then vanish from the face of the earth. This isn't a rare event. The International Organization for Migration has documented dozens of these invisible shipwrecks. A chilling example happened in February 2020. A rubber dinghy with 91 people left Libya for Europe. A crisis hotline received a distress call, with passengers sharing their GPS coordinates. The operators could hear panic as the engine failed. Then, the line went dead. The SOS was relayed to Italian, Maltese, and Libyan authorities, but no rescue was ever confirmed. The boat and its 91 passengers were never seen again. They joined a grim tally. 2/3 of all migrant fatalities recorded in the Mediterranean are people lost without a trace. Their families are left in a torturous limbo. These aren't just statistics. They are hundreds of individual lives. The ghost boats are a stark reminder that some of the world's largest vanishing points aren't places on a map, but the dangerous, unmonitored passages created by human desperation. Place 12. The Bermuda Triangle, the enduring legend. No list of mysterious places would be complete without the Bermuda Triangle. Stretching between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, this area is synonymous with unexplained disappearances. Now, it's important to be skeptical. The U.S. government doesn't officially recognize the Bermuda Triangle, and organizations like NOAA point out that the area sees heavy traffic and has naturally dangerous conditions, like violent weather from the Gulf Stream and treacherous shallow waters. There's no evidence that disappearances happen more frequently here than in other well-traveled parts of the ocean. Many classic cases have been exaggerated, and yet, the legend endures for a reason. Some disappearances are still truly baffling. In 2017, a private plane with 4 people aboard, including a prominent CEO and her 2 young children, was flying from Puerto Rico to Florida. It was at 24,000 feet when it simply vanished from radar. The Coast Guard found only a small amount of debris. The cause remains unknown. Theories range from scientific ones, like sudden releases of methane gas from the seabed, to the fantastic, like aliens and dimensional vortices. Whatever the truth is, whether it's weather, human error, or something we don't yet understand, the Bermuda Triangle remains a powerful symbol of the unknown. It's a part of our world where, at times, vessels and the people on them seem to cross a veil and disappear from our reality forever. From the deep woods of Yosemite to the crowded streets of a Finnish city, from the supposed paradise of a Caribbean resort to the cold gray of the North Atlantic, these locations are black holes on the map of human experience. They are places where the thread of a person's life is inexplicably and abruptly cut. These stories are profound human tragedies, leaving a void of unanswered questions for the families left to wonder forever. The reasons are complex. The raw power of nature is undeniable. Jurisdictional nightmares on the high seas and the calculated cruelty on migrant routes create vacuums where people simply cease to exist. And the urban paradox, where someone can disappear from a crowd, proves that our technology hasn't made us entirely safe. These modern vanishing points force us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Despite all our advancements, we are not fully in control. There are still places where the wilderness is absolute, where the ocean is vast enough to swallow any secret, and where the cracks in our own society are wide enough for someone to slip through. The world is still wild, and some mysteries may never have an answer. What do you think is behind these disappearances? Is it a perfect storm of natural events and human error, or are there darker forces at play? Share your theories in the comments below. Which story did you find the most baffling? And if you want to keep exploring the world's greatest unsolved mysteries, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching.